Joining me now is global affairs analyst Michael Bociurkiw. Michael is the founder of World Briefing on Substack and a senior fellow at the Atlantic Council. Michael, I just want to start with these potential talks that Pakistan says it's ready to facilitate. Even if both sides agree to talks, do you see either side willing to compromise anytime soon? And if so, where?
Good to be with you again, Omar. I don't see the Iranians giving in at all. This is an existential fight for them, as it is very much for the Ukrainians in the war against Russia. And these are folks who, again, like Russia, are willing to sacrifice their own people, sacrifice a heck of a lot, even tight alliances with allies in the region to survive. So it's good, actually, I think that the Pakistanis and other intermediaries that the Iranians have a little bit of trust in are in the middle rather than the United States. I think more will get done. And I think the Gulf allies are well attuned to what Iran wants, what it wants to listen to. But I think at the end of the day, Omar, it's going to be President Trump who decides. He has no ideology. I think he understands very little about that dynamic. So hopefully there will be enough pressure by allies that he respects to make some sort of deal with Iran. Because as your previous guests have outlined, the world economy is on thin ice right now, especially those oil prices.
Yeah, and look, there are more U.S. troops having arrived in the region now, and there are a lot of different possibilities, obviously, about what that could signal. But I just wonder, for you, what does that tell you about where this conflict could be headed here?
Yeah, well, if you look, I'm in Asia right now, and when you start taking THAAD missile systems and other kit from allies like South Korea, leaving South Korea, Taiwan more exposed to the region, to me, that only signals one thing, that the United States is going to go in one shape or form. And it looks like to that area, Iran's area bordering the Straits of Hormuz, because we're also looking now with the addition of the Houthi rebels threatening additional shipping lanes. The U.S. has to take some kind of action. But I think if it does, it will be very bloody. It will mean, sadly, deaths of troops on the ground, a lot of damage to U.S. infrastructure. And let's not forget as well, Omar, that Iran has some very powerful allies helping them. Russia, for example, verified information, Russia giving targeting information, satellite imagery to Iran to strike U.S. facilities in the region, while at the same time, the Trump administration is lifting sanctions on Russia. This kind of geopolitical minefield that we are in is very difficult to figure out, but all signs are not pointing to a very good outcome at the moment.
Well, and I wanted to ask about that because, for example, this week you had Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky sort of essentially marketing their anti-drone capabilities that they've learned really the hard way through the war with Russia. Russia has traditionally backed Iran in conflict prior to this, also in intelligence sharing, as you just shared there as well, while Russia also fights sort of this proxy war with Ukraine, but also really with NATO and the West as well. And so I just wonder, what do you see as sort of the most significant interconnected web between these two wars at the moment?
Sure. Well, a couple of things here. One is, I mean, it's extraordinary, is it not, Omar, that about a year or so ago, Mr. Zelensky was sitting with Mr. Trump in the White House and being told that he doesn't have any cards to play with. Well, right now he has a pretty full deck to play with, especially going to the Gulf region. And this is at a time of war in his own country, going there and offering cooperation, defense agreements, knowledge sharing, and even co-production of drones. And let's not forget, the whole origin of this problem here is that the Iranians have been given the time, the latitude, the bandwidth to manufacture these very, very high-tech drones that are not only now being shipped to Russia to pummel Ukraine, but also pummeling Gulf Straits and pummeling U.S. infrastructure. So anything Ukraine can do to share its knowledge and tech over more than 4 years of war is fantastic. At the same time, I think that Mr. Zelensky should not be naive, that he should put pressure on the Gulf states to at least temporarily pull out the rug from the Russians in places like Dubai, where they're the top buyers of real estate, with their Russian yachts parked there. A lot of Russian tourists say enough is enough. Until you stop the war in Ukraine, you're not welcome anymore. And, in a way, the Gulf states are paying a price because they've been turning a blind eye to that big pipeline of drones coming from Iran to Russia. They knew it was happening, but they did nothing about it.
It's fascinating, in this context, sort of the interconnectedness of the economies. We didn't even get to talk about, Russian oil exports and kind of how that factors into the global market as well. But I got to leave it there. Michael Bociurkiw, really appreciate you taking the time. Thanks for being here.
My pleasure. Thank you.
We're keeping track